doesn't know me. So my name is Brandi Engeman, and I am the Executive Director for the Los Alamos Arts Council. I've been the Executive Director since 2022. I was made interim in December of 2022, and it was made official in January of 2023. Before that, I had volunteered for the Fuller Lodge Art Center and done various summer camps and teaching gigs over there. It was one of the first places that I ever visited when I moved to Los Alamos. So I'm going to tell you guys my sort of story about why I fell in with the arts in Los Alamos, because if somebody had told me 15 years ago when I was running my medical transcription business that I would now be running an arts nonprofit, I would have laughed them out of the room. So I moved here in late fall of 2011, one of those years. And I didn't know about how high up Los Alamos was. So we moved here from San Diego, and I had a 4-year-old in tow, and I had my toddler, who is now a senior in high school. And I started walking around this little pond, because we lived over in the stair climber apartments, the ones with the 3 stories. And I started walking, and I said, you know what, I think I'm having a heart attack. I know I'm only, I think I'm 5 years old at the time, but I'm pretty sure I'm having a heart attack. Something's wrong. So I go into the closest building I see with an open sign, which was Fuller Lodge Art Center. Ken Niebel and Amy, now Sheets, Amy, were both there. And they took a look at me, and I said, something's wrong. I can't breathe. My heart's racing. And they sat me in a chair, and they said, it's the altitude. And they got me cookies and juice, gave my kids some coloring sheets, and every day for the next 2 weeks, I walked over there. And that is where all of my friendships started. Amy introduced me to the local roller derby team because I had played in Washington State. Ken gave me jobs off and on while my kid was in kindergarten and 1st grade, and then I worked full-time at Village Arts for a little while and helped off and on at the Art Center. And everything that I learned to become in Los Alamos started in that building. So when Ken reached out to me after COVID and said, I need somebody to help out in the gallery shop during Christmas of 2021, I said, sure, I could use some pocket change. Then he wrangled me into doing the education programming, and then the next thing I knew, I was the executive director. So that's a little bit about my history, why I love this organization. It was one of my first landing points when I came to Los Alamos. For those who don't know, and we'll pretend there's 1,000 people who don't know on the camera, the Los Alamos Arts Council has been around since the Manhattan Project. We started as the art club. In fact, Oppenheimer's house was originally the home of the art teacher that was working with the ranch school. And when Oppenheimer came out, they said, we've got somebody who's gonna live here instead. But if you've been anywhere on Bathtub Row, you know the O'Donnell House is the arts and crafts house. That was where those arts and crafts projects moved. We were an art club throughout the Manhattan Project, throughout the Zia Company's mission, and into the 60s when finally the board of directors, who at the time, the president was Betty Ahart, and she said, we need to be a nonprofit. They started that paperwork, and in 1967, it was officially filed, and we have been a nonprofit ever since. Off and on, we have run the facility that is known as the Fuller Lodge Art Center, but it has changed hands over the years because it is a contract with Los Alamos County to operate that space. And so for about 15 years, that was Ken. That was his baby, and he really turned it into something special that we have since nurtured and continued to grow. So when he decided he wanted to streamline and focus, the Arts Council, who had always been close partners with the Arts Center, said, yes, it makes sense for the nonprofit to run this again. They took that on, and they signed a contract with Los Alamos County in March of 2020. That same month, something really interesting happened, and the town shut down. So here we had these grand plans as an organization to sort of rejuvenate and to figure out what it looked like to run this joint venture again of an art center with a full-time gallery, with full-time art classes, and the nonprofit, which had always done the cultural events, like scarecrow contests coming up. I really think the Rotary should have a scarecrow, James. You don't have enough on your plate already. So it was a year of just being on hold of what would that look like. And then coming out of COVID, of course, as we all know, volunteerism changed, the way people engaged in public events changed. So for the first 2 years that I was there, it was a very different landscape than it had ever been prior to COVID. In the past 4 years, the things we're very proud of is we've renegotiated our contract with Los Alamos County to be a much more robust contract. We do a lot of services for them, and they provide a portion of the funding to make those services happen. We run, again, the art gallery 40 hours a week when we can. This week it's closed. I'm sorry, there's only 3 of us. We are sort of in another change period as an arts organization. So similar to when COVID happened, the world climate is changing, and especially when it comes to arts and arts-based funding. So we are sort of in a spot where fundraising is our focus, rebuilding our membership is our focus, and we're sort of in a pickle that I don't want to bring the tone down. Like I keep telling people, I don't want to focus on the negative. I feel like the more we focus on the good things that are happening, the more good things will happen. So we saw $20,000 worth of donations come in less than 8 weeks in September and October, or going into October, and we're hoping to keep that momentum up. We are at a position where we are changing a lot of the faces of our programs to meet the community's needs. So our legacy programming includes things like Pumpkin Glow, Scarecrow Contest, Kite Festival, the daytime concerts. Those are now daytime performances. They used to be called the Brown Bags. They're the daytime performance series. It's allowed us to branch out a little bit, so it's not just music now. We've had some theater, we've had some poetry readings. This weekend we're having a storytelling workshop with a dance theater that's coming through on Friday that I'll tell you a little bit about. But basically we recognize that the community is engaging with our organization in a different way, and we're pivoting very sharply to meet those needs. We are doing so having lost 7 of our staff in August and September. So we went from a staff of 10 to a staff of 4. One of those is a 10-hour-a-week marketing director who is currently out of town because her mother fell ill very suddenly. So normally we would, a weekend like this weekend, where we have an amazing dance theater coming out and our big craft fair on Saturday, we would have a full complement of staff. We have 3. So I feel like every service organization sort of feels this right now. You go from having your very robust volunteers to sometimes it's not so much. Our focus is really on engaging people in community building right now. What we heard in our annual survey and what we heard from the community when we sat down with them at all of our events this year is people are scared. They're feeling a little isolated and a little lonely. They don't know how to make new connections in town. They have their circles, but they don't know how to grow those circles. So we're working with local businesses and other nonprofits like Salmon Stop Bookstore, Bathtub Road Brewing, the senior centers, our social service programmings, the library. Where can we build community as an arts organization? And people want to engage with making things. They want to make art, they want maker spaces, they want art spaces. So we've introduced a program a little ahead of schedule called the Community Art Program. And this is essentially a way for busy families to say, I'm gonna pay one fee and I can come to all these programs whenever I want. I can bring my kids, I can drop my kids off for certain days, I can come alone, I can come with a friend, I can do these things. So that was a big pivot for us away from watercolor classes and oil painting classes and things where maybe people would engage for 6 to 8 weeks and then they'd be done and they wouldn't come back. So that was one of our big pivots. Another thing that we're working really hard on is in the gallery. So the gallery is a portion that people don't realize how little funding there actually is to make that happen. So we're introducing a program to ensure that we can continue to make funding off of the sales of the gallery art, but that our artists see full profits from that. So if you've ever thought about being a Medici, but with like a better heart and like supporting being an art patron, you can select an artist or 2 artists or 3 artists and agree to pay the rest of their commissions in a month. So we take a 35% commission to pay credit card fees and our staff and our marketing and our printer paper and all that. You would come in and you'd say, I want to buy James's art. He doesn't have art with us, so please don't come in looking for James's art. I don't know, maybe he wants to make some. I want to pay for James's commissions this month, and if he sells $100 worth of art, you're donating $35 to the organization. James gets 100% of his commissions that month, but we still cover our expenses. So those were 2 huge pivots for us. It's been a wild 4 years of changing to meet the needs of the community where they are. I'm going to talk about one more thing, and I like to do questions, even though there's only a few of you, but we have a huge program coming this weekend. Sappho Stance has been trying to get here for 3 years. It's been 3 years of me working with Yvonne Montoya, who's the choreographer and main director for Sappho's, to get her into Los Alamos. If you saw the Daily Post last week, there was a beautiful article about Yvonne and her connections in Los Alamos. Her family were homesteaders in Bronco Mesa. Her cousin is Mariah Gomez, who wrote Nuclear Nueva, New Mexico. And her story is very deeply entrenched in Los Alamos, in the valley, in Espanola, and around New Mexico. And so are all of the stories of the dancers who are coming in. So, of course, we want to sell tickets to this because we would like to be able to recuperate some of the costs of bringing this in. But at this point, I just want these dancers' stories to be engaged with. So I'm going to hand some tickets to you all. If you can't come, please give them to someone who can. And I have free tickets for every high school and middle school student. They can just come with their student ID. And that's of all of the high schools in the area. So that was sponsored by Via Credit Union, Los Alamos Teen Center, Antonio Maggiore, and DNCU. So we made sure that there are free tickets for every middle school and high school student anywhere in northern New Mexico. If they want to come drive up from Albuquerque, they can have a free ticket too. So if you guys could help me get that word out, this is Friday. The doors will open at 5:30 for a silent auction. Seating starts at 6:30. The dance is about 2 hours long. So that's really
something that we could, do you have like flyers
Yep.
that we could take?
Yep, I'm gonna give those to you, and like I said, I'm gonna hand out a stack of tickets.
This is nice, I think, I'll put this up where I work.
And thank you, I appreciate it. So,
That is nice.
that was one of our big things. That was something that was really important for us to bring this year, knowing that funding was gonna change, and we had a little extra funding earlier in the year. July was a hard month for all the nonprofits. We all saw income go down as expenses rose, like almost overnight. I watched it happen in a span of about 4 weeks. And at that point, we couldn't pivot out of summer camp. We had 100 kids on campus. We had to have enough bodies on campus. So there were some unavoidable expenses that we couldn't cut. But now we're cutting those expenses as best we can. So like I said, bringing people out to engage with the art is more important to us than recuperating some of those costs. But if you know somebody who would like to donate or would like to buy tickets to donate, please send them to me and I'll make that happen. And then Saturday is our big craft fair. So this is the 45th annual Fall Craft Fair. And it is so big that it has outgrown Central Park Square. So we started doing that last year, where we had our fall one in Central Park Square. And it will also be on the north end of the Fuller Lodge lawn. We have 107 vendors. Usually fall has about 70. So that's huge considering that Los Golondrinas is doing theirs and it's the opening weekend of Balloon Fiesta. If you don't want to drive, stay here on the Saturday, then go do that other stuff on the Sunday. So that is it as far as my spiel. And I am open to any questions about any topic as long as it's not math.
I promise no math questions.
I appreciate you. Like, I could try to make it happen. I've got a calculator. So, but yes, please feel free to pick my brain about other things we might be doing that I might have forgotten to mention.
Say a little more about the gallery and, how many artists do you have? Are they local artists? What's the process of an artist getting into the gallery? I mean, I think you mentioned a little bit about the fees and the commission that they make if they sell the art while they're there. So say a little more about the gallery.
Absolutely. So the gallery is located in the historic Fuller Lodge. It is on the south end, near Central. For those, there's people who've lived here 30 years and will come in and be like, this is my first time in the gallery. So the gallery is operated as part of our Los Alamos County contract, but also as part of our mission. So our mission is to connect artists to patrons, especially new artists, emerging artists, or artists who are more in the, I'm not sure this is my business yet. So right now we are representing just over 120 artists between the gift shop and the show that just left was a show that was Vias Caldera's Artist in Residence. But because there's something happening today, they had to come pick up the work early because they all work for the federal government. And so they needed to come pick up their work a little bit. It would have been through Friday, but they had to come get it today. So as far as the demographics of our gallery, I think that's the question I love to answer the most. So right now, like I said, 120 current artists. Over the course of the year, we represented 170 because the exhibits rotate through. 60% of those throughout the year were Los Alamos County residents, White Rock, Los Alamos. And then we had a portion, and I could look up the graph, but I'm not going to. It was about 15% Taos, about 20% were Santa Fe, and then we had a mix of like Albuquerque and southern New Mexico. Our mission is to keep the gallery shop 90% New Mexican-based artists in either quantity of pieces or cost of pieces. So we look like at those two sort of factors each year. That was getting a little mathy, so I'm gonna back out of But essentially our goal is really to represent northern New Mexico. So we look at Los Alamos as our primary target. And then there's a 90-mile radius, and it's funny, I used one of those like nuclear fallout maps. You know, like where would the wind blow? And I was like, okay, if they're in this zone, this is considered regional. So there's like a 90 to 100-mile radius that is our regional, and then we will cover all of New Mexico. And then if someone is from out of state, we like them to have a connection to Los Alamos. Sometimes an artist moves out of the state, but is still very connected in the way they create their art, and we are willing to represent them if they are a wholesale artist. So that brings us to the how does it work? So if an artist would like to show in our gallery or in one of our exhibits or the shop year round, we have applications on our website. So the shop is open year round to applications. It is a free application. We only look at it every 3 months. Or if we have a significant number of exits, sometimes artists will be like, I've outgrown you, and I'm gonna just take my work to Santa Fe, or I'm just gonna take my work to Albuquerque, or I'm moving, and it's not gonna be convenient for me to bring the work. Then we will do a jury of whoever's in that application. So every 3 months we look at that shop application. Right now, we're gearing up for Affordable Arts. Affordable Arts is our big holiday takeover. The entire gallery is a shop. So instead of having an exhibit, we usually have about 140 artists represented. Their goal is to get their work into the hands of people during a giving season. So it's a big shopping season. We do about 1/3 of our sales for the year in December. So last year it was 1/3 of our sales between November 20th and the end of December. So that's one way to get in, and then throughout the year we will put out art calls, and that is just what it sounds like. We'll say, here's the theme for this exhibit. Here's a prospectus. This is what we're looking for in the pieces, and folks will apply to that, and then we will jury those folks into the show. We have one show a year that is an open call, which is our Come As You Are. It's a Pride themed show that happens for 5 weeks in June and July, and that is basically we take as many pieces as we can. So that's a great way for new artists to sort of show their work and to know that they can get in during that time period. The commission structure hasn't changed in a decade. So we are still one of the lowest commission galleries in northern New Mexico. Most galleries are 50-50. We do 50-50 on our exhibits. So if somebody is just showing one piece in an exhibit, it's a 50% to the artist, 50% to us. We pay all the GRT as a pass-through. We collect all the credit card fees, we do all the marketing, we do all that. So that's what that covers. In the shop, it's 65% to the artist and 35% to the gallery. We did last year approximately $95,000 back into the hands of New Mexican artists through that little tiny shop. Again, most of that during the holiday giving season, and then again in the summer tourist season. Did that kind of answer a lot of the questions?
And I'm just impressed with how many artists, and these all seem like very local, northern New Mexico type artists, 100 artists. I mean, that's great support for the artists. And I was wondering, for the gallery, for some of the exhibits that you have, is there a particular kind of art? Like, do you prefer things like painting or sculptures or pottery or jewelry, or I mean, is there something in particular that you think is a good fit for?
It sort of depends on if it's in the shop or the exhibits. With exhibits, it really depends on the theme of the show. So, and we don't guide artists beyond a prospectus. So we did a partnership with Peak this year for their anniversary, which was art and nature. We love those sort of, there's a word for that one, it's like 2 words, art and nature. Basically that was the whole prospectus, like bring us your vision of how is it inspired by the natural world around you. We had a lot of 2-dimensional wall art for that. There was a lot of oil paintings, a lot of watercolors, a lot of pastels, not a whole lot of 3-dimensional works. But earlier in the year, we had done one called In Motion, which was inspired by the idea of movement in art. We saw a lot of more 3-dimensional pieces in that. We had a lot of, one woman makes art out of things that she digs up out of the river and then upcycles into these sculptural pieces. So our exhibits are very much what those artists feel fits our theme, and we try to get as many as we can into our little tiny space. The shop, we do try to watch what the trends in the sales are. So last year we noticed that in the first half of the fiscal year, The two-dimensional art had very high sales. It was our highest selling category. But in the second half of the fiscal year, it was our lowest selling. So we're encouraging those artists to do original two-dimensional work. We're seeing a trend of people want to buy that work, but not at $800. They would like a print at $35. So it is very much more of a retail situation where we're watching the trends. We're encouraging, we don't tell artists what to do. We don't tell them what to price their work, but we do give them tips and feedback on what we're seeing daily in those sales data, what we're seeing other galleries are saying. We go visit other galleries and we visit things, to see what they're doing and how they're shifting. And jewelry and pottery, those are the two that are the highest selling in our shop. And then quantity-wise, stickers and prints and postcards and greeting cards, anything a tourist can put in their carry-on. So, does that help too?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And then, I was wondering also, because you're supporting all these artists, and I wonder if you have artists that have been with the Art Center for a number of years, where they even, because it seems like, it's a great place for new artists to get started, but also I could see that, the local artists might want to have a longer term relationship.
We absolutely do. So I don't know if any of you know Fran Stovall. So Fran Stovall's been with the gallery forever. I would assume since I see pictures of some of our artists in the original photos that were taken when the gallery opened in '96. So they were at that original opening. So we do have artists who have been with us a very long time. So artists like Fran Leslie Buckland, who works for Los Alamos County. She's been an artist with the gallery off and on for 20 years. We have several, like Gloria House, who doesn't do pottery anymore, but she still brings us pieces to sell. She was one of the ones that also sort of established the art center back in the day. And then somebody asked me at the Kiwanis meeting, what is one of my favorite things that I get to do in my job? And it is when we see either one of our really well-established artists sell a big piece, because sometimes they're sort of they've moved from business into hobby. They're like, yeah, this is no longer my main business, but this is now the thing that is sustaining me. And then when I see one of our teenage artists sell their first piece, because they come in and they're like, will anybody actually buy my work? And so when that first print goes out the door and they get their first $7 commission check and they're like, somebody bought my art. That is a privilege. Yes, it is a privilege that we get to do that for them. So, oh no, I got two hands at the same time. I know Chuck. I'm gonna take Chuck first and then I'll get to you.
Some years ago, the Rotary Club had some cards, folded cards with a scene in front of Los Alamos and nearby. And I had photographed all that and printed up a set of 12 in a box with a clear lid.
I remember those.
Yeah, you remember?
I do.
And it was really Linda Hull and Bob that ended up making more of them and bringing them over. So I'm one of the artists in there.
There you go. Yeah, we have. I mean, this is the thing though. But I have been shopping at that gallery for almost 15 years now, and I get to meet people, and I'm like, oh, I have your art hanging in my house. I have a piece of Leslie Buckland's work. I have a piece of Ken Hansen's work. Terrence, before he passed away, he donated a piece of art to each of us as well as the gallery. Do you guys know Terrence Hannon? He brought us all his works before he passed, and he donated one to each of us. So it is a privilege as an art collector, well before I started this job, to get to meet the people who want to be like, I have your work in my house. So I remember, I think that one of my very first affordable arts, they were still selling the Rotary card 12 packs, and those all went home for Christmas.
This little story about Rotary and identifying the scene.
Yep. And sorry, I didn't get your name.
I'm Brian Noonan. I'm president of the Los Alamos Symphony Orchestra.
I should have brought your card. I have your membership card on my desk.
Yeah, you do.
I do.
Now, I've seen maybe 15 or 20 executive directors of the Los Alamos Arts Council.
I know.
It seems like it's a revolving door.
Well,
and the main thing I see is the Los Alamos Arts Council has become Los Alamos Arts and Craft, hardly any music.
Oh,
It used to be a large fraction of music, about half.
We
Now
do,
it's-
we do a lot of music every
Oh,
year. We
you
do a
made-
lot. We brought in an Italian violinist in February.
Yeah.
And every month.
Whatever happened to the brown, the basket,
The brown bags,
yeah, brown bag?
they got
contest.
renamed, that's it. So I think that we've discovered this disconnect recently. We couldn't figure out why they were no longer being heavily attended because they got renamed. So in 2023, we renamed those as the Daytime Performance Series because our contract with Los Alamos County no longer required it to only be music. And we had several theater engagements and poetry engagements. So they got renamed to the Daytime Performance Series. And so like this week, it's not happening on Wednesday, it's happening on Saturday. And it's a dance and storytelling workshop. So I think that's we should just, that's a newsletter for next week. My marketing director is home with a sick mother, but we've discovered this at the Kiwanis because that was the same question they asked there is why don't you do those anymore? We've been doing them for 4 years since I started and there was only 7 or 8 people at them and we couldn't figure out why. So we think it was the name change.
You're not aware, I mean, the advertising is not up front. I didn't know about them, and I used to perform in them myself.
So we have, the application is still on the website for anybody that wants to perform at them.
You have to find that.
Yes, we do. So I was just telling these at the start of this, our funding has gotten so severe that we are down to 3 staff. And to the point where I have even offered to my board of directors if they have to let me go in January, I'll continue as a board member. But it's just constant funding issues. So
The noontime concerts were free.
they are free to the public, they are not free to us. They cost us about $800 each time.
Really?
Yes, artists will no longer perform for free.
Noontime?
Yes, no, last year I've spent $7,000 just on artist fees for those concerts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I never received a fee.
Well, I know, but we're talking about in the past 5 years. So earlier I mentioned COVID changed things for a lot of people. So a lot of folks honestly, I was like, maybe the barbershop group wants to come perform and they would like me to make a donation to Rotary. But a lot of the artists are charging fees now because that is also their job. It is also the extra money that they need. So since 2022, when I took over, there has not been a single daytime concert, those noontime concerts, where the artists have not asked for anywhere from $300 to $500. And then it's also the labor that goes into it, the marketing, like you're saying, the marketing that goes into it. We try to get it in every paper. I want everybody to have some sympathy for Carol Clark and her staff because we all want things in the Daily Post. And if we put everything we did in the Daily Post, we would be our own section. And so we have to sometimes choose. We will send Kirsten or Carol, will say, here are the 3 events that are happening this week. Please try to highlight at least one of them in the physical paper, and then they get the rest of them in the online. I'm working with Kyle McConnell, they are the marketing director for LARSO, to make sure that we get this information about the formerly brown bag, now daytime performances into all of the LARSO newsletters. And we've reached into the homeschooling community because the homeschool community is always looking to engage in stuff for their children because their kids don't get to engage with music and things on site. But last year we spent almost $12,000 on musical performances. So what we also know though is there's the Los Alamos Concert Association, there's Live in Los Alamos, there are the summer concert series. So we try to hit targets that aren't hit rather than duplicating where things are. So that's one of our goals, is not to overbook music, overbook dance, overbook theater, but we still do a lot of music. So our violinist that came out in February worked in the schools for 2 days while he was here and then put on a performance, and there were 80 people at that performance. So that was an evening concert. But the daytime ones is hard. So we had one here last year. We had one at LARSO last year. We did several in the lodge. We did a few on the lawn so that our summer camp students could engage in it. But never fear, music is still a huge component of our organization.
I don't see it.
Well, I don't know what to
see
do
it.
about that, I'm sorry.
Having everything to be paid for, it used to be about 10 to 12 noontime concerts.
There's 12 a
And-
year, yeah.
And they were free.
They are still free.
They're not.
To the
they're not
public.
advertised.
So like I said, this is another thing that we hear a lot. I didn't know that was happening. My marketing director was in tears before she left for Wisconsin because it's gotten to the point where it almost feels a little like an attack, because people are like, I didn't know your classes were happening, I didn't know your stuff was happening, I didn't know Scarecrow Contest was happening, I didn't know Pumpkin Blow was happening, why didn't I hear about this dance theater? We took out several ads for various performances this year. The daytime performances are ones that are always on our website. They're always in our newsletters. They, at least half of the year, Carol gets them into the Daily Post physical paper. We do send out, we hang flyers, we do all these things. We don't know what else to do. And so what we've started asking folks is, how do you find out about what's happening in your community? Because I get Peak's newsletter, and if I want to know what's happening at Peak, I go to their website. If I want to know what Rotary is doing, I look at y'all's Facebook pages. Social media is on the decline, which is good. I hate social media. I hate it with passion. I think it's gross. So we're starting physical mailers again. It is $500 a month to put those physical mailers in the paper, and right now we don't have the funding for that. So we are trying, and we are trying to get that word out that that's coming. Keep in mind that our contract with Los Alamos County requires those daytime things to not be one medium. So not just music, but spoken word and dance and things like that. So maybe 8 out of the year will be musical, but the other 4 will be some variety of other physical art. I don't know, what's the performing art? Thank you, performing arts. So we do have a concert coming in February that we're partnering with the New Mexico Performing Arts Society on. But again, we don't want to duplicate efforts because there are other organizations that do year-round music, and so we just try to find where the gaps are instead of trying to be the only ones doing those things.
Could you say a little more about how Los Alamos County supports and
Yes.
how, because you mentioned the contract,
Mhm.
so the county has a contract with the Arts
Mhm.
Council to do activities for the community. So it's essentially a community service that this is
Yes.
providing
Yes, so we're a service
And-
contractor in the Cultural Services Department.
for the cultural services.
Mhm.
So how does the, how does the county determine like what kind of services or what kind of things are needed? Is that all through public input to the council?
So-
And also, what is the level of support that they give?
The one part of your question about the input from the community, it's different with some of us who are historic service providers. So Peak, LARSO, the Historical Society, the Teen Center, the Youth Activity Centers, keep in mind that those are organizations that have been around for decades. And so the county doesn't need, they don't take the same process as, say, if we were like, we want to build a brand new thing. Here's this brand new thing that the county wants to happen. What they're looking at is they're saying these are services that have been proven to provide quality of life to Los Alamos County. They're services we would like to see continue but don't want to do ourselves. Like the county doesn't want to do Kite Festival. That's right, they've got enough on their plates. So historically, prior to my taking on this organization, all together the Arts Center and the Arts Council were getting about $12,000 a year to do all the things.
Oh.
Right, so
That doesn't
that's
sound
the
like
past.
enough.
That's the, it's not. So when I came in, I said that's not enough. And so in 2023, we got a much better contract. It still doesn't cover all the services in the contract. So this is something that all of the nonprofits are sort of focused on and working with is how can we, the county was very generous, and I don't want to, I really think that Anne Laurent is probably one of the best county employees that I've seen in my 15 years here. And I want everybody to be very clear that she supports the arts more than any of the other people I've worked with in the past. So I'm going to caveat it with that. But what they do is they say, here is a proposal. We are looking for services. Those services are specific to us. They are services that we do that they want. But they do have to put it out to a competitive bid, just like any other proposal. And if somebody came in and said, we could do it better and we could do it cheaper, I am of the opinion that they should. So I'm like, this is a Solomon's baby situation to me. I don't want it just for us to have it. I want it so it benefits the community to the best. But because we provide those services, Kite Festival is our program. It's been going for 30 years in April. And so the county would say, we want a festival, but not necessarily a kite festival. We would still provide Kite Festival even if we didn't have this contract. Okay, so right now in 2025 calendar year, we received approximately $120,000 from the county, which sounds like a lot. I am required to run year-round education programming for adult, youth, families. That has to include every type of medium. That includes music, it includes theater, it includes the Missoula Children's Theater, for instance. Our classrooms, which operate 5 days a week right now, that's kind of in the air. Adult classrooms, ceramics, painting, all the things. So year-round, I get $10,000 a year to do that from them. The rest is expected to be subsidized by fees and sponsors and donors from the community. We're trying to fix that. We feel like that is a really unbalanced thing, because right now we're seeing people can't pay fees, and we want to be able to lower that, and we can't. We have to make ends meet. The gallery is required to be open full-time year-round. So that is an average. So we all know that full-time is 2,080 hours a year. We're required to do that on average. So like a week like this week when I don't have the staff, it's closed, but we will be open 7 days a week during the holidays, and it makes up for it. To operate the gallery and all the things we talked about earlier with the gallery, we get $40,000 a year, which is not enough for a full-time staff person. So we have to bring in the rest of that. So when sales decline, that's when we start seeing the hit there, where we have to staff less. We are required to do kite festival, pumpkin glow, scarecrow contest, 3 craft fairs, the 12 daytime concerts, the 2 evening concerts, 4 collaborations for the gallery and 4 collaborations for cultural programming, Missoula Children's Theater, I'm missing something. I said the 2 evening performances. So we're required in our contract to do all of those things as part of a cultural programming budget. We get $70,000 a year for that. So where the I know, James's mind is like, I see you over there. So I think the disconnect really comes in when people are like, that sounds like a lot of money. This dance theater that we brought in, if I did not have sponsors and grants, this dance theater was $22,000 to bring in. We're getting 3 days of programming out of them. They're doing stuff with the schools, the theater, and a workshop on Saturday, but that's all their travel, all their things. So if we did not have grants and sponsors, that would have eaten up almost 1/3 of that programming budget from the county. Now we're talking about staff, and we're talking about marketing. We're talking about supplies. We're talking about insurance. I'm required to carry $1 million liability insurance year round and a $10 million if there's alcohol served. I'm required to put alarms in the Fuller Lodge building and cameras. I'm required to market, I'm required to survey, and that's on top of anything else we do for our nonprofit work. So what has happened over the years is, although the county gives us quite a bit of money, we are subsidizing it. It takes us 10 months to basically meet the county contract. 10 months of income, and then we meet the county contract, and then whatever happens in those other 60 days is what our general fund is left with. And because the funding was so low for so many decades, there wasn't a general fund to start with. We are seeing the community recognize it and step up and donate, and more sponsors and more memberships, and all these things are happening. But again, it can't happen without staff, and it can't happen without volunteers. And we can't use volunteers in certain areas. We can't use them anywhere where they're gonna see people's private data. We can't use them in the gallery anymore because those objects don't belong to us. If we were just buying things offline and like selling things, that'd be different. Those would be our belongings, but we've had too many mishaps with mishandled art and people who aren't trained to handle those things, and we don't have a volunteer coordinator to coordinate 40 hours a week with volunteers. So we are just trying to find the balance between this robust funding we get from the county and the fact that we have to still subsidize that, and we still have to staff. They need an executive director, we need a bookkeeper, need a marketing director, I need a program director in each of those departments. And right now I run education programs, and I'm the executive director, and I'm doing part-time marketing, and I'm running grants, and I'm here with you guys, and running the craft fair Saturday, and my assistant executive director, he's in the same boat. He's doing the gallery operations, cultural programming, part of the education work, helping me to finish grants, and doing outreach. So only 2 full-time staff, the rest are all part-time. So it's a win, but we have to be careful about how we process that win. So
How many hours a week do you work?
how many am I supposed to work, or how many do I work? So today is Wednesday. What's today, Tuesday?
Tuesday.
I've worked 28 hours since yesterday. So I work 40 hours a week, but right now I'm putting in closer to 70.
I know that some of the past executive directors were essentially on half-time.
Yeah.
They weren't there half the time.
Oh, no, I'm there full-time and then some. I basically have not had a day off since July 26th. I have worked 7 days a week since July 26th, and so is my assistant director, except he was in Spain for 2 weeks, so.
Well, I think in the past, not being fully funded for a full-time person
Correct.
had people, multiple directors, because they couldn't afford to live on that.
And that's just what it comes down to. We're in a situation right now where it's the same boat. Hey, Jet, we have to pay a living wage. Larso is offering $21 to $25 an hour. We're about to put out for a gallery position for 14 to 16 with no benefits. I have no benefits, my staff has no benefits. Yeah, so, hi. Sorry, Jet and I know each other. His wife actually used to be my assistant director before she got her new job, so. But yeah, these are great questions, and I feel like this was I didn't want to get it too heavy into the money, but really we want folks to understand that we will do everything we can to keep those programs everybody loves, to pivot into the programs people are requesting. And if you guys can take one thing back into the community for me, every service provider in town is stressed, and we are also going through the same things our clients are going through. Our families are seeing pay decreases. I know that our health insurance is about to go up while my income is going down because I took a pay cut to keep my marketing director. So we are all in the same boat. So just I love what you guys have to say. Will it build goodwill? Yeah, say your things.
We'll say it, we'll do it.
Yeah, because I was just looking at this and thinking, this is what all of us should be focused on right now. Yeah.
Yeah, our four-way test of the things we think,
Say
say,
or
or
do.
do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Let's thank our speaker.
Thank you guys for your time.
That was tremendous to go through. This was a great thing for our community.
So let me give you all some tickets for this weekend. Like I said, you can hand them out or keep them for yourselves. So this is do you like dance?